Right, let's get set for the role of financial sector in Viksit Bharat. Financing the future, building a high-growth, high-trust financial ecosystem. Spearheading this conversation is our moderator, Pooja Bharwani, the President Investment Banking and Head Financial Services and Tech, Elara Capital India Private Limited. She's somebody who specializes in BFSI and fintech sectors, bringing extensive expertise in investment banking, financial advisory, and capital markets. With prior experience at leading global institutions like Deloitte, ICRA, Bloomberg, she's somebody who's built a strong credential in financial analysis. May I please invite Pooja to now join us on stage. Let's give it a warm round of applause. And joining Pooja would be our two panelists on stage. All right, great to know that we have the three of them out of the four who are joining us. Of course, would like to take the opportunity of inviting Vandana first to join in, of the FCA DISA Independent Director, Punjab National Bank. Vandana brings extensive experience in finance, auditing, risk management, and corporate governance. She serves as an independent director at Punjab National Bank, one of India's leading public sector banks. We also have Shrikant Patil, who is the CEO of the fast-growing Singapore-based fintech company called Digyali, I believe, if that's the right pronunciation. I'm so sorry, it's completely typed wrong in my sheet, but let me correct it on behalf of the team, Digyali. Of course, with prior experience at leading global firms as BCG, Accenture, IBM, he's somebody who brings that strong expertise in strategy consulting and financial services. We also have with us Sriram, who's joining in, who's a board advisor, BFSI strategist, and a transformation leader, partner BFSI practice. Do we have Sriram in the room? Okay. No problem. Till the time he joins in, just allow me an opportunity to introduce him as well. He's a seasoned business leader, known for facilitating organizational transformation and driving strategic growth. With extensive experience across global markets, he has held senior leadership roles in the financial services sector. Passionate about developing leaders, Sriram is the one who brings in the leadership philosophy centered on empathy, authenticity, and being human. Let's now warmly welcome Sriram with us on stage. Let's give him a big round of applause.
Hello, good afternoon. So from the last panel, we're a pretty trimmed down version of panelists, but we'll try to do justice. The topic is also fairly broad. It's the role of the financial sector in Viksit Bharat. So we will try to cover a few prongs of that and see what best we can get out. I'll just lay the context. So everybody knows we're building a $30 trillion economy by 2047. That's the vision that's been laid. And financial services sector, of course, forms a very key part of all that progress because all the financing comes from here. Infrastructure expansion across renewables, logistics, digital networks, manufacturing requires capital on a scale that we've never seen before to get to this Viksit Bharat vision. MSMEs, we all know, currently contribute 30% of our GDP, but they're expected to play a much larger role as also envisaged by the budget this year in exports, in manufacturing, as well as employment by 2047. India's net zero 2070 commitment also requires trillions of dollars. Some peg it at 20 trillion, some at 30, in terms of everything to do with energy transition, industrial decarbonization, and all sorts of financing to get us again to that vision of net zero. At the same time, we've built one of the most dynamic financial ecosystems real-time payments, API-based integrations, paperless onboarding, embedded finance. And again, we're operating at a speed that we've not seen before. But here, let me pause. What is the challenge here that we will try to address in this panel? When you scale digital credit, when you scale digital finance, you also digitize fraud. You also scale risk. You scale cyber risk. And as banks, fintechs, NBFCs, cloud providers, ecosystems, we all combine to form a combined ecosystem to get us there. We are also interconnecting and creating some sort of a systemic risk. So the question is, how do we grow both responsibly as well as sustainably? And with that, I will again welcome our panelists, and we would like to discuss along 3 themes. One is, of course, the growth in terms of infra financing, MSME, which are the 2 pillars of growth. And second, hopefully we get to that prong with this panel, is the data, AI, and digitalization that we need today to be able to have trust in the system as well. All right, with that, I'll throw it open to Vandana, my first panelist. So Vandana, you sit on the, you've been associated with banks, and you sit on, as an independent director on one of the large PSU banks. Now, as we always know that historically banks have always held a disproportionate share of long-term infra financing. Do you see that changing? Do you see the PSU role changing? Do you see more private capital coming in? So how do you see this next wave of infrastructure finance and the role that PSUs need to play to grow in that market?
Take the mic. Yeah, good afternoon to everyone, to the entire August panel over here. Yes, it's a real credit to Mr. Narendra to be organizing such lovely conference with such lovely debates going on through the day and sessions throughout the day. Yeah, so the role of PSUs, as you said, if you're looking at the budget allocations also, the role of infra and the role of growth, which is the development which is happening in the with the PSU sector, you see that it's very vast. It's a historic scale, very huge. And with this kind of scale, it's very tough for private capital to be coming in at the inception especially. So we are looking at infra, we are looking at the road mala or the roads. This year we have had 11 lakh crore allocation for infrastructure. The national infra pipeline which is there is at more than exceeding 100 crores. So at this stage, I don't think that the private sector can match that kind of scale in the inception. So for that stage to come in, it is going to take time because we have roads, we have railways, we have our ports. All these are like the arteries for trade, for movement, for decongestion of traffic. We have the roadways, we have the, in the last few years, we have seen literally 5 to 6 lakh crores being done for the infrastructure, for the roadways. We have seen the Delhi-Mumbai highways coming up. We have seen Amritsar-Jamnagar, Bangalore, Chennai, all of these, and the Northeast also. There are so many diversified highways which are coming up. Huge amounts of money which is going in. This is, that kind of scale will come in only from the PSUs. Even with the railways, I think that, with the high-speed trains, the bullet trains, all these can be done only with the scale which can come in from a PSU sector. Yes, but in the inception, I think that it is not possible for the PSUs to be, anyone other than the PSUs taking this forward. But later on, maybe what the PSUs can do further is, instead of crowding in into this space, I think they should allow, go in for deepening the bond sector. They can monetize all the operational assets which are there, and by RITs, by InvITs. Those are the areas in which they can probably drag in and bring in other capital coming in. And that would be a gradual process. But at the moment, I think it is going to be largely from the government. The government is the one which is giving us the CAPEX, the patient PSUs are the ones who are being resilient and who are bringing about the progress which is required with this kind of infrastructure, because Viksit Bharat, without this kind of infrastructure, is not possible. And finance is a blood for all this which we are talking about. AI, we are talking about infra, we are talking about everything. Nothing is possible without this blood being the finance which is there, which has to be there in the system. And this can come largely only from the government. What private is doing is like a complementary service to the PSU sector. So at this stage, I feel that the PSU is largely going to be holding on. They can be more, they can probably de-risk a little in the coming phases once the inception stage is crossed. That's what probably can be done.
No, thank you, Vandana. That was really insightful. I think you're right. Initially, just given the scale, it's going to have to be the PSUs. But of course, also given the scale, it can't only be the PSUs,
Correct.
right? So over time, that, and we're seeing this as part of the budget. That's what the government is also envisaging in terms of deepening corporate bond activity, in terms of FEMA guidelines being reviewed again, right? So
Absolutely.
they do want to see other
They want to
participation and de-risk some of the balance sheet from the PSUs.
True.
No, thank you for that. Shrikant, if I can come to you. So, Vandana addressed one large prong, which is infrastructure financing. Another large prong that they are focused on is MSME, right? And we're seeing that a lot in terms of the budget, the TREDS guidelines, secondary market deepening. From your perspective, you look at, analyzing this SME credit per se. One is financing, one is, financing it right? Because we don't want to end up with a lot of defaults. So if you can just go through, some of the business models, how you look at businesses when you're assessing the SME space, I think that will help.
Firstly, it's such a pleasure to be here, and Narendraji, congratulations for continuously growing this collaboration with people, and amazing to be here. Let's take a step back, right? What you mentioned, Pooja, was 30 trillion. There are numbers which talk about 55 trillion, right? So let's say we land somewhere between 25 to 55 trillion, right? But you think about where we are today. We are going to touch 5 trillion. We have certain scale of stock market, right? And we also have SME exchanges. We also have, bonds and, the trading that happens. We also have scenarios where now, globally today, the entire invoice discounting market is around 15 trillion, right? We are just starting to scratch the surface in India, right? You see these 4 large companies that are doing 10,000 crores each or something, 50,000 crore together, or maybe this. So you can see there is a gap today, and there's again the gap for future, which is going to arrive, right? And same thing if I look at small, medium enterprises, there are enterprises which are PSUs, there are enterprises which are private sector. But if we think about globally, around 50% of the GDP is created by SMEs. And it's not, small, medium enterprises are not only important from the GDP perspective, but they are also important from the employment and economic stability perspective, right? Because they are creating this stability across the economy. So you can imagine where the SMEs will grow when we go from 25 to 55 trillion, right? And then once we keep SMEs at the center, we look at, there are different requirements. I mean, the first requirement is, of course, credit. Today, there is $1.5 trillion of gap in India only for SMEs, right? And, out of that, let's say 150 to 200 billion is for women SMEs. All of that, right? So there is tremendous market. There is tremendous potential for organizations to grow, SMEs to grow, to prove them. That's why, if you think about the large organizations, they might grow at certain rate. SMEs would grow significantly faster, right? And hence, we going back to, so what we do at DigiLI is we analyze business models of companies through machine learning, AI. I mean, I say machine learning before AI because a lot of people then equate it with generative AI, but the AI which we use has been in existence for the last 40 years, right? Predictive modeling and all that stuff. So we see so many models where the companies, SMEs, should take up a much bigger role. And I'm not referring to any political figure, but one of the political guys had made a statement saying, China versus India startup ecosystem, right? We really need to see how we can create fundamental business models instead of thinking about, just retailing or whatever, right? That innovation, I think we still need to pick up. So I'll pause there, and then we can discuss further on the AI and other things later.
Great. No, thank you, Shrikant. Shriram, just as a, adding on to that point, so for SMEs, we have been using the data more and more to be able to assess, are they credit worthy, and sort of building into that market. Do you think we're doing enough justice on using data? One of our previous panels also mentioned in terms of building a bank for infra in terms of data. So how far do you think we are in terms of building that bank? And second, if you could, even from a system perspective today, where do you think we stand when we're looking at all this financing? Where do you think the largest bottlenecks are? Are they truly the depth of the bond markets? Are there some sort of credit enhancement risk that needs to be shared in the system that is not being done? Because you advise a whole lot of corporates on transformation in the BFSI space. Where are you seeing these bottlenecks? Or is it just simply digital transformation?
Thanks, Pooja. I have worked on system-level enablers, a little like ARERA, PMAY, so on and so forth. I will take your second question first. I think the biggest bottleneck today is the interlocking of bond markets, the credit enhancement schemes which is going on in various and risk-based pricing. For example, while the individual is analyzed so well today, there are credit bureaus, there are social media analytics, AI and OI. Some of the NBFCs have started adopting it even 6-7 years ago, right? There is no interlocking of the entire system to give a very clear idea. Like Vandana said, the banking system is taking a very high risk on infra funding and even housing funding because there is clearly an ALM mismatch, right? Fortunately in India, still the behavioral life cycle of housing is 8 years, even though you give the loan for 20 years and 25 years. The average behavioral life cycle is 8 years, which saves most of them for the mismatch is restricted. But in infra, it is very, very high. To me, the only major infra institution we had was erstwhile ICICI, which got changed to a bank, and we lost it. So where do we mingle this? RBI actually 5 years ago started something called a public credit registry, which I was part of to bring this in. But I think for whatever reason, it did not progress further. So where do we push? For example, when we wanted to push affordable housing in a very big way, this is the problem the builders are facing, because by the time they get permissions, they build, they come, they need a 5 to 6 year funding, and NBFCs or banks are charging them a very high level of interest. And the BIs from abroad have labeled India as a developed country. So they don't want to fund your buildings or even infra anymore. But however, the credit frameworks are improving now. We have InvITs, REITs, and some of the new DFIs, but they are nowhere near the scale which infra is growing or the government is growing the infra to obtain the Viksit Bharat. The risk-based financing is definitely improved. Be it I can talk about NHP we have done, be it the refinancing part, or be it many of the NBFCs we work. There is very highly advanced risk models. Bajaj Rajiv Jain talked about it a week ago. It not only defines your entry level credit score, which could be 700 or 800, it also over a period of predicts your behavioral pattern, what is we call as probability of default. So if I had to pick up one structural issue today, which will lead us towards Viksit Bharat, I say it's an incomplete market architecture, which rightfully, in my opinion, and my friends in RBI do not agree, they should work on it rather than calling it as an ALM mismatch. Do you have a bond market for 8 years where we could borrow, right? Do we have a long-term market where we could borrow at a reasonable rate, which is very important? What was your next question? Sabi, did you ask one more?
We can move that to the
Okay.
data section. That's okay. No. So thank you, Shyam. That was very well sort of put together. That it's a system level architecture issue across various prongs. It's never one issue, and all of them have to be addressed simultaneously. With that, let me go into the data, AI, and the digitalization part of the discussion. So, Vandana, today, I mean, PSUs are, of course, catching pace with the digitalization, and there are initiatives going on at PSU banks. What are some of the digital initiatives you think PSUs still need to take, or your bank in particular is taking to be able to address this? And what role do you see boards playing when it comes to AI governance? That, if we can shed light on that.
Yeah, thanks, Pooja. Yeah, so this is digitalization is the next step forward. But if you look at the PSUs, or you look at the bank, the PSU bank especially, you see their entire funding, where is it going? Mostly towards the agriculture. It's all the rural India. There are people who are far off, who don't even know what is, some of them don't even have in their families, 4 people don't have individual phones. There's just one phone in a family. We are talking about AI in that kind of sector. We are talking about the entire mass rural India. It's very tough. When we talk about AI from the bank perspective, yes, we have bots, we have regional language bots, 14 languages, I think, in the banks, which are there in regional languages so that people can talk to the bots, but it is going to take time. It's not going to be as simple. It was earlier, when it was decades back, I think in 2002 or 3, there was Institute ICAI seminar in which someone from Kotak IT had presented, and everyone said, she talks very well, you should listen to her. And she had said that day, I still recall, everything will be done through a telephone. You will be paying your cab bills through mobile. You will be doing things just with a mobile phone will do everything. I came back home and I had told my dad that, he was 70 at that time, I guess. And I told him that, everything is going to be on mobile. He said, I can't even use my phone for this. Can you help me with this? How do you think mobile is going to do? And see where we are today. I travel cities sometimes without even a penny in my purse. I'm doing everything, including giving Diwali tips to maybe the drivers or someone through the UPIs. Nobody is using cash other than, of course, there are a group of them who are from the MSME or the trader sections who still want to use the cash just so that they can avoid tax. But other than that, all of us, I think the educated class have moved. So AI is going to take time. It is going to happen, but it is going to take a long time. From the bank perspective, yes, we have started using AI for onboarding, end-to-end digital onboarding, everything, with the video KYC and all the bots and everything made available for the entire diaspora of India. We are using those things, even from risk perspective. We are using AI for trying to check wherever the MSME transactions are there as to how they are flowing in, how the KCC, Kisan transactions are being monitored. So all these things, we are using the AI for different purposes. And your next question on how the board should be, yes, the board has to now start asking questions as to how sure are we about our systems, how resilient is our data architecture, and how fair are our algorithms. These are kind of the questions which our boards will have to start looking in, and we have to be, even the board level team has to be aware. They have to learn new things. They have to go in for seminars, workshops where you can, enhance your skills so that you are able to understand what's happening in the world around and help in taking the cybersecurity, the frauds, because as much as AI will come in, there will be that kind of challenges which will come in. You'll have deep fake. You have customers who are fake, you have deep fake accounts of some people who are trying to match the voice of a customer. There are going to be challenges at every stage. We need to adapt and we need to ensure that we are one up to them. That's what we have to try to see, that, from all the governance point of view, we have to see that we are one up to the hackers, we are one up to all those who are trying to throttle our system and bring it down. So as good as the AI is, I think all the other parameters also we have to be strong in.
Thank you, Vandana. You're right. If the hackers are running X, we need to run 2X. But for that, we need to learn X fast enough to be able to overtake them, right? So. So with that, Shrikant, I'll come to the next question. You work a lot with these algorithms, right? And again, Vandana touched upon it, and it's the next question. There is a lot of opaqueness in these models, right? A lot of these companies are building proprietary models. Nobody knows what's going in. People just see what's coming out. And, of course, it's being used. So we're not saying everything is bad. But, as more and more proprietary models become the key for decision making, right? How are we to tackle this? And we also know if, you put in 2 parameters, are they being put in correctly? Who is looking at all that? Should these models be audited going forward, given that this is going to become big in the system?
So, a very important aspect, because, we always look for benefits case when we think about AI or technology, but we also need to look at, how are we going to govern and what are the challenges coming out of it. So firstly, AI revolution is also the result of the whole new data which has got emerged, right? So it's a digital world for SME specific. There was a lot of new data which has become available over the period of time. So there are the fundamental thing which we are seeing, and 2 years before this was not considered, and I realized that I have a lot of bankers around me, so I'm going to be a little bit skeptical. I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm going to go easy. But what's happening is that the credit models for small medium enterprises are getting disrupted. So far we've been thinking about only data which is financial data, right? And essentially, if I'm sitting in December 2025, I still don't have data for March 24, right? I mean, that's the reality. Only when companies file those and then it's available on MCA, then I really get that data, except the public companies. So there's a huge lag. And then I always say that, credit-based decisions are very similar to driving a car by looking into the rear view mirror, because, you always get the past data and you think that, it's a prediction of future. So first thing which is going to happen with the new data, AI coming in, is that shaking of these credit models. And, the way we look at it is, it's very simple. We look at large number of data points which we can draw correlation to with reference to the behavior of the company. So we go beyond just the credit behavior. We look at broader behavior of companies, whether they have integrity, intent, potential, instead of just their ability to pay, right? So I see that there's a huge shift which would come in the credit models, where you're not looking at only financial data, but you're looking at a larger pieces of data, right? That's number one. Second is in terms of the explainability part which you mentioned, everybody needs to have a proper governance. See, one of the things which we need to also challenge is, so for us, we don't get any discriminatory data when we build the models. For example, we don't have gender-specific data or any other type of data which is going to discriminate the companies, right? And that itself makes our job harder, because if we would have taken the data which was easily available and put it there and then run the models, they are cheaper model, but they are biased models, right? And we would make some mistake at some point in time. So there is a huge responsibility in terms of how organizations are building machine learning models, how they are using AI, while they are, even before they build the models. And then the second part is that there has to be transparency, right? Like, when you have these results, when some pharmacy or this tablets or whatever, there is a result on, some test which have been published. So they have to publish the negative results about saying, hey, are there ethics violations, governance violations when this was used? And that's where the certification will come in. So it's a long topic, but I think, having that clean data, working through the ethics, working through the governance, working through an unbiased set of data is the journey which we need to take, right?
Especially with the DPDP Act also coming in.
With that coming in, data, and this is not just in India, it's across Southeast Asia, across the world. You see so many restrictions about data. So data is available, but at the same time, there are certain restrictions for private information which has to be carried. So very interesting journey going forward.
And just a quick follow-up on that, right? But do you think some of these models that are being used, proprietary, do you think when they're being used on a larger scale, they need to be subject to, say, an audit or a regulatory scrutiny in the industry?
Of course.
Yeah.
So again, I'm again bankers around me, but we can't.
There is one guy who fears bankers.
There's one guy who fears bankers.
Customers, bankers.
No, I'm just talking about the physical proximity here. But you think about, nobody can go and challenge saying that, hey, why did you reject a loan to a bank, right?
No, you can.
No, you can, but
go
again,
to
exceptional scenarios, right? 99% of the time that's not happening. In the case where AI will start rejecting the loans, there is also certain level of responsibility which the organizations who are leveraging AI will have to come in to say, hey, why did you reject the loan? And, this that responsibility part will become more legal, more formalized. Again, I'm just kind of predicting.
That's a good point. That's probably the way to sort of backtrack into whether these are well-governed or,
Yeah, true.
unbiased models. Last question on this prong for Sriram. So, you work with organizations in the BFSI space with a lot of digital transformation. How are you seeing organizations adapt to digital transformation? What are the new trends you're seeing in terms of digital transformation for BFSI companies, in the next decade?
See, just a point to the previous question. Most of the AA, whatever program, has to be clearly transparent. And in fact, now I think regulators across the globe have sort of defined it very clearly, that it cannot be a black box. It has to be a white box, known at least to the organizations, which is very clear, right? If you, for example, there was a joke going around, if you tell a program, create maximum customer satisfaction and give me the way, it went and refunded the entire interest on every loan, right? It's a maximum customer satisfaction, right? So that's one. But what I see is, in fact, we were just having in our WhatsApp group another argument. For the last 5 years or so, I have seen the BFSI very, very highly involved in the AI-based thing, if you can call it AI. You call it AI, Anthropic, Claude, all these are in a way predictive analytics. We might not have known in the shape and state where it is in, but people have started doing a complete balance sheet analysis 5 years ago. I myself helped a company develop a model where it will pick up what the credit guy wants to see rather than going through the entire statement. People linking their analysis where there is unstructured, thin credit file or no credit file, they are linking it to a usage pattern or even UPI transactions has started about 5-6 years ago. Go and ask any company which does in rural, any NBFC or banks which does in rural or thin file, this one, even some of the affordable housing has started using it very, very clearly. In fact, there are guys who say how much goods which come into a small shop in a village, how much goes out and what are the margins, and how do you predict, and they even have built in what do you sell by cash and what do you sell by credit. So what I am saying is, it's very highly, things have moved very, very high on the front, and the best is now, again I will say, end-to-end digital journeys have started. Where when on India-Burma collaboration, we were building a mortgage journey for Burmese bank, we created with Oracle. And this country's digital infrastructure is probably 15 years behind us, right? Even there it worked to 70%, and today in India's infrastructure with UPI and others, it would go 100%. Even a mortgage loan, there are companies which have started trying out 100% with probably this one to a valuer, an AP exposure to a lawyer, so on and so forth. And it's Bajaj, Rajiv Jain, who said, he listened to 2 crore customer calls and converted 5.2 lakh customers. Just by listening to the calls, it picks up the word and gives it to you at the back end. And in Q3 alone, they said they have disbursed 1,600 crore of loans by listening to customer voices and calls, which AA has picked up. Now, if they had to do this loan to pick up from the street, imagine the cost they would have incurred. Your phone call cost, fully loaded, cost 22 rupees. Your DSA cost you on unsecured loan something like 2%, and the processing. So this is the power of AA, where they fully embed completely into the journey. And again, I quote him, he says, we are deploying AA across the board, across the life cycle, customer engagement, underwriting and servicing. AA is just not one part of our business, it's our business.
Thank you so much, ladies and
Thank you.
gentlemen. Please join me in giving our panelists a big, big round of applause. Apologies, I have to intervene because we still have one more panel and I do not want our audience to further stretch their capability as well. We want to give you a hearty break, but also our next set of panelists. There are 6 of them who are waiting on the other side, so allow them an opportunity to at least get 30 minutes of talk time before we break in for lunch. On that note, big thank you to all our eminent panelists for joining in. Of course, we have with us on the stage Pooja, who's curated this conversation. We have Shrikant, we have Vandana, and we have Sriram, who's here amongst us. We just request, of course, as Sandeep ji has also joined in as our presenter, to now please give the token of appreciation to all our eminent panelists. And may I urge and request all our speakers to now come in together for a group photograph. Ladies and gentlemen, at the 5th edition of the Connect Future Ready Leaders right here in Mumbai, we just finished our conversation on the role of financial sector in Viksit Bharat, and on the other side, we are now going to be joined for the sustainable development and climate action.